We were talking about the fact that there's two aspects to how the world runs. There's the part that scientists could figure out by experiment, and then there's the metaphysical causes of all those things happening, right? Or the way he said it, the things caused by the substance and the things caused by the forms. And the way the Ron was associating the forms to metaphysics was that in order to really understand the forms, you need to understand the function for each thing was created and why the one who gave it a form gave it that form. And therefore, Maaseh Bereishis is not physics. And he criticized the Rambam for saying it was physics because we don't want Maaseh Bereishis can only be taught to a few. We are keeping it esoteric, and you really don't want medicine or agriculture or all the engineering, all these useful forms of wisdom. They're all based on science. We don't want it to stay esoteric. So he had major problems with the Rambam. That said, he's about to cite the Rambam. So with that, we'll proceed as soon as I share screen. Okay. So so after speaking about how the wisdom that you can't get from science, you have to get from revelation. People can't figure it out on their own. So he says V'lachein tzachak harav Moshe, and therefore Moshe laughed al Galianus. I know it's Galen. I just don't know how to say Galen in Aramaic. Sha'amar Shehiyosa Adam Tzocheik Lo Yada Lo Siba. He doesn't. Galen didn't know why people laugh. Doesn't know the reason for laughter. Not why people laugh at a joke. But oh, no screen sharing yet. Oh, I'm still selecting the screen. I didn't actually start the share. Thank you, Tina. So here's the words now. As soon as I can move this thing off of the actual words I need to read. Um, okay. L'chein tzachak harav Moshe. Therefore, the Rambam laughs al Galinus about Galen. He ridicules Galen's statement. Kishamar sheyos adam tzochek lo yada lo siba. The fact that people laugh, he doesn't know the reason for it. Not that he doesn't know what's funny, but he doesn't understand the connection between humor and laughter. Like, why do you breathe funny and make weird noises when something humorous happens? Like that sound. Well, you know. But Amar kihu mikoach hanimne shato de lo asiba. And he's saying that it's impossible to know the reason. Kihu davar yotze me'etama adam mitzuraso, because it comes from the essence of a person and the person's form. So it's not in the realm of science to know why people laugh. You have to understand that the idea of psychology as a soft science is still millennia away or centuries away, most of a millennium away. Um, so maybe the example doesn't ring that as well with us. Hine lefize, according to this, Maaseh Bereishis, chachmas hateva amitit. It's the true knowledge of nature. Lo osashis falsu bo hamischakmim, not that which that the wise philosophize about. I like that. He turned his false he turned philosophy into a Hebrew verb. Vihi amitas yedias atzmi devarim. It is the knowledge of the essence of things. V'zehu nimshach v'nis'ale bin nosane atzuros, and this is a function of those who give the forms. Shehem hasichlim hanivdalim. These are what we call angels, the intellects that are separated from matter, just pure intellect. It could only be found through the outflow of, prophetic divine outflow, shefa. Lachain haisa chachmas Maaseh Bereishis semucha umitzarnis leMaaseh Merkava. That is why Maaseh Bereishis is attached or borders on and connected to Maaseh Merkava, the divine the details of understanding the divine chariot, Ushniya lehabamala, and second in importance to it. Kishtei Eila hachachmos, these two wisdoms, tiye bahem hasaga b'ruchaniyim, they are the knowledge, they are spiritual knowledge. Shemas sechlim anivdalim, that is the intellects are separated. And this is very Aristotelian, the idea that metaphysics is intellectual. So the mind is the one thing that we know that exists that is not an object. And the idea of a mind existing without substance, so that it's pure form, which is the Rambam defines angels in Yesodei Torah Perek Beis, both as pure intellects, these Sichliyim Nivdalim, and also it's Surah below Homer, form without substance. An idea that, by the way, reaches English in the word information. To inform is to put forms in something. Your mind is a keeper of forms. When you understand a table, it's because you have some of the form of the table in your head without any substance of the table. And therefore, you can plan a table, and the table's essence precedes its existence because the form is the essence of something, which is what the Ran's also talking about, and precedes its existence. Whereas Sartre points out that when it comes to people, existence precedes essence because the person exists, and then you decide what to become. In case you were ever wondering what existence precedes essence was about. But in any case, the point here is that the intellect is considered a metaphysical entity, and the key to metaphysics, which is why the Rambam identifies Aristotle's intellects without bodies with malachim. Yes, Steg.
So I don't know enough about Iran's style, but
Yeah.
I believe when I've seen it, like the grammatically phrased this way, yit palsafu hamit hakimim, with in hitpael, it's I've seen other Rishonim use those kinds of forms as in a derogatory way. So
Right.
it's like
I don't. Right.
the
Right. So
wannabe philosophizing of the so-called or the wannabe sages.
right. I
Like
took
that.
right. So he could be downplaying philosophy in the sense that he is talking about its limitation, but I think he believes it's a real pursuit.
Hmm. I mean, I guess the question is
So I
whether
don't really know
that
if it
the
fits.
people. What I was just wondering is whether,
Yeah.
like, especially since he just mentioned someone else um, mocking a different opinion, maybe he's doing the same
Right.
thing about like the people who think this, they're wrong. They're barking up the wrong tree.
Right. No. Right. So I really didn't take it that way. I took him as saying science is great. The philosophers do great stuff, but science isn't as great as Maaseh Bereishis. Like we need the agriculture. So I mean, he was just telling me how important it is to spread that stuff. So I didn't really see it that way, but I hear what you're saying because they're mitzchakmim. They're making themselves as though they're wise, like mityahadim in the Megillah,
Right.
right? I mean, it's generally taken to be insincere converts, not actual converts, right? Everybody just starts acting Jewish. Um, so I hear that. I hear that. You can see though why I didn't assume he was being cynical though. He values it. He just doesn't believe it's as much value, which doesn't really fit ridicule. But okay, could be.
I was thinking that like this particular opinion, he's
But he's not
objecting.
giving an opinion here. Here he is saying what? He's saying that Maaseh Bereishis is the true knowledge of nature, and science is not knowing the essences. It's only knowing the results, the encounters, the experiments.
Hmm.
Experiments is anachronistic. Experimental method was not invented yet. But still, I mean, you'll see where he goes with this. In science, you only know like your experiences with something. You don't know the thing itself.
Mhm.
But he does, I mean, since he did just talk about how knowing how things behave is important, I don't know if he's ridiculing it. I think he's just, I don't know if he put it down far enough to use ridicule. But I hear you. I mean, what you say rings a bell. I mean, that is often what, mitchakmim is, right? So, okay. The im tishal, I'm just going to let the question hang and go on. The im tishal idvarenu, if you're going to ask that, according to what we just said, in a Maaseh Bereishis, hu ba'atzma maritz merkava. Whoa. Maaseh Bereishis is all about angels and metaphysics and stuff. Isn't that the same thing as Maaseh Merkava? It's only knowing the forms of things. Right. If it's knowing nothing other than the forms of things. I don't want to say just because he's just saying this. He just said how important it is. Shehu nitlevenim shach, which is whatever. Um, nitlevenim shach. It is hanging and drawn from minos name to rasam. In other words, it's a function. It's a product of those who give them the forms. Shem asechlim nivdalim, which are the separated intelligences, the malachim. So then, what you're really trying to do is understand the angel, right? Isn't that what we call Maaseh Merkava? Hatshuva ro'i sheteda. So it's fitting that you should know. Or maybe Hatshuva, the answer. Ro'i sheteda. So the person who did the Hebrew side thought it was you ought to know the answer, and the translator did it the answer. You ought to know that there that understanding hasagas and yanei nivdalim beis chalakim, that there's two parts to understanding angels, these separated intelligences. Ha'echad ha'itlot ve'kesher mashalamat behem. The dependency of everything in the physical world that's under them to them. Vasheni hatlosam amshavakam mashahu lamalam. And the second is their connection and dependence on what is above them. And there's no doubt that there's a big difference between these two things. Because contemplation and understanding of what's above them, it got to be me'ula, even though there's no lamed, right? They have the greater value. They're more precious. Marayon b'mashu lamata behem. Iyun b'mashu lamata behem. Then contemplating how they affect the things below them. So Maaseh Merkava, as I write on the side, is how Hashem causes metaphysics. Maaseh Bereishis is how metaphysics causes the physical. So one is how do malachim come to be? And the other one is how do malachim cause events in this world to come to be? And therefore, Yedias, knowing Maaseh Bereishis is knowing the forms of things, alimitatam, their true forms. Because that is the connection between this low world and angel. And Maaseh Merkava is knowing the connection of chain of angels from God. So remember that remember when he was discussing the rainbow, he was talking about how the physical cause and the spiritual cause take you to the same place, and that hashgacha pratis doesn't have to run in contradiction to physics. That it's not two different modes by which Hashem runs the world, right? Here he's saying that the physics of the rainbow is the substance, and the rainbow as a sign is Maaseh Bereishis. It explains why the laws of physics produces rainbows. It's because one day there'd be a flood, and Hashem wanted a sign. Also, we had in the very beginning, right? Hashem created elements, and the elements, when they mix, are superior. And that same law of nature applies to humans. See, he's trying to make the connection between metaphysics and physics as a religion and godliness inherent in the physical world, not like you need miracles in order to see God in the physical world. The koma shabiarnu bazeh. So now he's going to darshan. Remember, these are Derashos haRan. Now he's going to darshan a parak Tehillim, parak kuf lamed. Oh man, I should remember this. Kuf lamed tes. He's going to explain some key psukim in light of this idea. The kol ma shebiyarnu b'zeh, everything we explained in this, Bir David HaMelech, the Mizmor Echad Nichbad Sheyasad, in one of the Mizmorim that he established. The who, and which one is it? Hashem Chakartani? No, Chakartani. It's time to clean the glasses. Hashem, you've searched me out. The Kavanaso Bo, his intent overall, over the whole parak, Lodia Shechakiras Adam Eina Maseges Lidias Atmi Hadvarim. A person's research, so scientific research, will never lead to knowledge of the essence of things. V'chize lo yodea im mitzad chachma elokis. That such things are only knowable through divine wisdom. So the why of nature requires knowing forms. Knowing forms requires knowing those who give those forms, which takes you up the chain of forms through the lower malachim to the higher malachim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I just threw in there the entire second parak of Yesodei Torah. So if that was not to spell out what I mean, the Rambam in Yesodei Torah talks about how, parak Aleph, there's only one thing that exists non-contingently, and it's not a thing, and existence is only an approximate term. So Hashem exists non-contingently. Hashem has a thought, which has a thought, which has a thought, which has a thought. We call these higher thoughts, these intellects with no bodies, we call them angels. And at some point, you get to a level of thoughts, the Rambam says, which are the spheros, the spheres, the orbits that the planets are in. And then you get to the moon, and then you get to the intellects here on Earth, and then you get to animals and physical objects and so on. So according to the Rambam, which is pretty typical for an Aristotelian Jew's metaphysics, metaphysics is a chain of intellect from God thinking something that's thinking something that's thinking something to eventually you get down to us. So there's a form which gives the thing below it a form, which gives the thing below it a form, until you get down to physical objects. That was what I was referring to. But in any case, back to this. You can never get the essence of things because that's only knowable through Chachma Elokis. V'farish bo ksap psukim. So now he's going to make his point by highlighting a few psukim that he hopes will give like some emotional import to this idea. Shem Amudei HaMizmor. These quotes he considers the pillars of this parak Tehillim. Hine Hischil, the opening words, Lamatzech LeDavid Mizmor, to the musician, this is a Mizmor by David, or attributed to David, or about David, or connected to David in some way. Hashem chakartani v'teda. Hashem searched me out, and you have known me. V'tipol hatema al zehalosho. You should be a little wondrous. It should be surprising, this language. Ki yedias Hashem yisbarach enenu ba'ach hakira. But God doesn't have to explore to understand something. He just knows. Like, what's this Hashem chakartani v'teda? It should just be Hashem knows. What kind of studying me does Hashem have to do to know me? Aval mitzad sheratza lo dia shechakiras ha'adam lo sasig li'yediah mitis. Since he's going to be explaining that his own explorations as a human will never reach the true wisdom. Tafaz zeh. So he used this language when he spoke to Hashem also. So the reason is mostly so that he could contrast Hashem's knowledge to ours. So Hashem's research, which doesn't exist, knows everything. Unlike our research, which does exist, but doesn't get to everything. Lomar, chachmasu magas liyediah amitis, avol chakirasi lo tafsik shetaviyanin leklal yediah. My own chakiras, my own scientific explorations, they're never going to get to total knowledge. Derech ba'atzmo amar acher, and along these ways, he says in the next pasuk, Ataya dati shivti vikumi, you know my sitting down and getting up. You understand my rei was a strange word. Rayoni, you know my thoughts from afar. Rei sounded like my friend, so I wrote in my notes. No, this is Rei is related to Rayoni, my ideas from afar. Ain safek. There's no doubt. Sheyesh ba'adam tnuos. A person has forces or tendencies or paths. She'ain niros, that can't be seen. Sheyoter nalamos, which are more hidden. Mitnuas hayeshiva v'akima. Why did he pick the example of sitting and standing? If you wanted to talk about the secrets of a human, why are you talking about sitting and standing? Why don't you talk about, I don't know, hating somebody in your heart, right? Something that can't be seen from the outside. Why did he pick sitting and standing? But amnam bachar tenuah. Why did he choose this tenuah, this movement? Lodia shagam zu lo yasig adam b'yediato. A person doesn't even understand another sitting or standing through the way we understand things, through our studies. Ki adam yania atzmo beina yodea kelav hamanain oso mahin. A person conducts himself and doesn't even understand the tools that he uses to conduct himself. In other words, people have motives, and they don't even understand the mechanics of their own motives. This has very, very musary, right? How much is going on in der Dunkel, the subconscious? Or Yisrael uses the word der Dunkel, the dark, right? So much is going on in your mind that you don't even understand how your own mind works, right? A person decides to sit, a person decides to stand. So you think that sitting and standing, you understand the mechanics and you understand the biology. And you go to a PT who taught me last week that I've been sitting down and standing up all wrong. And I've been doing damage to my back the way I sit in it, the way I get into a chair and get out of a chair, right? That is knowing one level. But knowing the Maaseh Bereishis would be knowing why, the what motivates sitting and standing. And a person doesn't even understand their own motives, their own thoughts, or how their mind works. Sod shivti v'kumi galui elecha v'loli. And therefore, secrets of why I sit down and why I stand, they're known to you, but not to me. Ki ein safek she'im ha'uman lo yada hakelim hatzrichim l'pulaso. It's known that if an artisan doesn't know the tools that he needs for his craft, lo yifal dvarav, he can't make anything, right? If a carpenter doesn't know how to use a hammer and a saw and a nail and a screw and whatever, you're not going to make too many cabinets. Vani poel bekalim lo edosam, and I, just in regular life, I use tools and don't know them. Im kain atolu yodea lo ani hapoel. It must be that you are the knower and not I, the one actually doing. So in this parak of Tehillim, he's showing that because Hashem understands not through science and exploring events and encounters, but by knowing the essence of things, Hashem actually understands my sitting down better than I myself do. Right? That there's a limit. He's talking about the limits of human knowledge, but really more the limits of human because he's not saying that a person can't get this knowledge. So it limits of human knowledge is a little overly pessimistic. It's the limits of what we can learn on our own, as opposed to a Navi intervening and shining the light on the topic. Al kach Amar Achar kach Amar, which we already saw, Banta, because I put it in brackets to finish the pasuk. Banta l'rei imei rachok. You understand my thoughts from afar. Ki me'asher yedias ha'adam b'dvarim eina mitzad atzmam v'amitasam. A person doesn't understand something from in and of themselves and their truth. Ki mitzad mikrehem, only by their events. Gam ki ha'adam yavin machshava chavero yavin osa mikaro v'lo mirachok. Also, when he knows the thoughts of his friends, he knows them from near, but not from far. This is not going to be the intuitive use of the words near and far, or at least I found this counterintuitive. Ki ein havanati zulati mitzad mikrim hanirim. Where was I? Ki adam yavin machshavos gam ki adam yavin machshavos chavero yavino samikra ki ein havanasi zulasi mitzad mikrim hanirim. Because where was I? My knowledge does not, ain doesn't really work in the way I was about to translate this. That's why I keep on getting stuck. I have no knowledge except from what I get from the visible events. For example, I will judge that a person is happy that he is happy. So if somebody's smiling and dancing and acting happy, I presume they're happy, right? This is the Turing test way of knowing that a person has a mind, right? I know somebody else has a mind because they act like somebody who has a mind. I know somebody is happy because they act like somebody is happy, right? But I don't really know what's going on inside their head. I can't know their happiness. I'm deducing or assuming their happiness because they act in a way that I would consider consistent with happiness. Bar'os al panav hod hadam v'zivu. When I see in his face the glory of blood and its shining radiance. Here, blood, we're referring to one of the four humors. So blood's the one associated with happiness. This is again not really physics that we really need to get to. But in any case, to take that nature and bring it to the outside, so when you're happy, the redness of happiness comes to the outside, bringing the vehicle comes with the happiness itself. The kasher nadon kigam ba'adam hamisatzev. Similarly, I will judge that somebody is depressed, shehu atzav, that he is depressed. So when somebody misatzev, acts all depressed, I'll assume he is depressed. By the way, Steg, this bodes well for your idea that mischakein means to put on a show, because now he's using same page. He's using mitzameach to talk about when he looks happy. We assume he's happy. No. He said chiyismach, but here it's mitatsev, right? We're using that hit pa'el to say he's making it look like he's depressed, so I assume he's depressed. Parosa love ede hamara hashchora. When I see on him the signs of black bile, again, for humor theory. The black bile is the humor in the body associated with depression. Hamamid haruach hativi imer kavo bifnim, which causes a stagnation. It stops up the natural force with the vehicle associated with it. This is all because I don't really know your happiness or your sadness. I'm deducing it by accidents, by events. Sorry, the translation uses accidents, but I think events is a closer translation. Lo sasig davar zulasi be'es hakarov. Therefore, I don't know anything except what I encounter, what's close to me. But since God's knowledge is true, he knows me even from afar. So I don't know happiness from afar. I don't know the happiness that's going on within your mind. I only know the happiness you express and show me. So I only know the happiness that reaches me, that's close to me. But God, Banta Merachok, you know my thoughts from afar, because Hashem knows the thoughts while they're still sitting in the mind. Interesting, Steg. I never thought of the fact that melancholy actually. Okay, learn a little grammar learn a little etymology every day. Achar zeh amar. So after this, he says, he continues. This is David HaMelech continues in the kapitel Tehillim. Shemitzad ze ba'atzmo yischayev. This alone it follows, causes she'ein lehester me'Hashem yisbarach. One can't hide from God. Tell that to Yonah. Ve'in mefalei imenu b'shum inyan. And nothing can be concealed from him. Why? Because God doesn't know by watching events. God knows by knowing the thing itself. He amnam nuchal laster adam, because he can't hide from a person. The only reason why we could hide from a person, Yan kol yidiosav banu, eino rak mitzad mashe mikra, is only because he only knows the events that come out of us, not what's in us in itself. When what he sees or feels of us. And something seen or tangible, it's not the true form. If we hide these events from him, lo yasigo tanu. So it's very simple, right? If you're depressed and you don't want the other guy to know depressed, you put up a nice smiley face and you don't act depressed, and he'll never know. Aval Hashem yisbarach shehu yodea mitosenu v'atzmi lo mitzad mikreinu. He knows our truth and my essence, not through events. Gam ki nachshov lastir mikreinu im nuchal. Even if we were able and wanted to or thought about hiding these events, not acting sad even though we're sad. Ma'iyah, what good would it do? What would it be? V'hu ma'sha amar, and this is what it says a little later in Pasuk Zayin, Ana elech me ruchecha, let me go from your spirit. Va'ana mipanecha evrach, and let me flee from your whatever he means by face. Hine elchiach she'ein manos lemanos me'Hashem. One who wants to flee can't flee from Hashem Yisbarach. V'shtei tu anos, for two reasons, two tinus. Ha'echad ki ein ba'adam yicholes leleches im lo yilchu Hashem Yisbarach. The first reason is, even as he's fleeing, he could only flee because Hashem is giving them power to walk. You can't move without Hashem giving you the power to move. Kasher hiktim, like it said, Vamarta atayadati shivti vikumi. Atayadata shivti vikumi. Like we saw before, you know my sitting and my standing. Vizkir zeh ba'ad kol tnuas adam, and he said this as a sample of all of human motion. Kihu movement, ki yodea sodam. He knows their foundation, right? He doesn't just know the motion; he knows what the motion's about, the why. Im lo yavo ha'ezer bahem me'ito yisbarach, and if the help doesn't come from him, lo yuchal lifol bahem, we wouldn't be able to act on them. V'lechein amar ana elech meruchecha. Therefore, it says, "Let me walk from your spirit," which I think he is saying, not meruchecha, away from your spirit, but through the aegis of your spirit. Kigam esa, and let me also lift knafayim emaros laof, wings that are rushing to fly. Ke, now this is the rest of pasuk test. Kanfei shachar, like the wings of the morning. Asher karega yifrosa romi mizrach. In one moment, it spreads out its light from the east, lamarav, to the west. The eshkon, but the pasuk actually has eshkana b'achris yam, and lodged at the uttermost ends of the sea. Because remember, in Israel, yam is the Mediterranean is the west. I can't run away from you. All of running and flying, doesn't happen without your help. And this is what it says in the next pasuk. Also, your hand will put me down. And your right hand will grab me. Kolomar, gam kinaniach, even if we let it be said, ki ha'adam shalit al alicha mitzad tivo, that a person is in charge of their own travel because of their nature. Echi sater me Hashem, how could he flee from Hashem Yisbarach? Iyim shehu nistar me adam, umitzad sheyidi yaso netlis b'mikrav. It's still going to be hidden from a person who only understands things from their events. And if a person runs away from doing things, he won't even know his own essence. If I hide my event from you, if I were able, I still wouldn't be hidden from your face. So Hashem would still see what's going on in us, so to speak, even if we didn't act out the way we felt. Since your knowledge is in my essence and my truth, and therefore it says a little later on to explain it, Lo nechad atzmi mimeka, I can't hide myself from you. Asher usisi baseser, you made me in secret. Rukamti betachtios aretz, you crocheted me in the recesses of the earth. It's an interesting metaphor for creating a person that we're crocheted. But I guess if you see how all the muscles are layered, it's not that far off. Galmi ra'u einecha, your my body, your eyes have seen. Va'al sifrecha kulam yikasevu, and in your book they're all written. Yamim yutzaru below echad bahem. Days are created, and well, it's either and not or for you is one of them. He'll explain. Yirtzeh she'ein safek. There is no doubt, Shami, Tasiv Amtsi, my truth and my essence, Lo Nichkad Mimeka is not hidden from you. Kilo Haisa Yidiascha Osi Nitlis B'Merkreh. Because your knowledge of me is not dependent upon events. Echo Sisi, the Seser, the way you made me in secret, Rukamti B'Tachtios Aretz, you wove me in the hidden recesses of the earth. V'gam Sham Galmi Ro'uenecha. And also there in the recesses of the earth, your body's, your eyes saw my body. In a imkain mitzad sheyidel schapa mitzi va'atzmi lo uchali sater mipanecha. Since you know my essence, I can't hide from you. Ubina ubanta l'reim merachok, and you know all my thoughts from afar. Aval ani hu sheyediasi natlis b'mikrim. But I, whose knowledge is tied to events and experiences, Beli maya krureyecha, tell, and to me, how rare, how precious are your thoughts. Ma'atzmu rashehem. How removed from me are their beginnings. Rotzello mar she'ein tzarich lomar she'ein yodei lifratehem. I don't know the details of your thoughts. Aval gam rashehem, even their very beginnings of your thoughts, uklalehem, and their general principles, Shudavar kal, which it would be easier comparatively. V'chol chach ma'atzmo mimeni, ma'od ve'ein chakirasi mistapeket bahem. And even that is beyond my ability to research. But I want to. There was a bit of a heavy load there. The Rambam talks about how Hashem's knowledge of something is to some extent identical to the thing itself. And I hear that in the Ran when he talks about God knowing things in their essence. So Hashem doesn't know me by exploring me or learning about me. He knows me because he knows me directly. So my existence and God's knowledge of my existence are kind of one thing. I don't want to go too far with this because you get kind of stuck because the majority of the Rambam's first section is all about how God doesn't really stand, God doesn't really sit, God doesn't really, have a nose. When he gets angry, his nostrils don't flare, right? And then he says, and God knows what you're doing, and there's a unity of the knower, the knowledge, and the known. So that too can't be taken too far. I mean, different people who study the Rambam have different answers for what this is doing here, because it's not, the problem is not just that Hashem's knowledge can't be what we talk about when we talk about knowledge. Hashem's knowledge can't be a thing. It has to be a absence, right? This is the Rambam. There are no properties of God, right? God is just a collection of what he isn't, right? There's no properties. There's just the essence. So is God's knowledge his essence, or is all of this understandable on some level that is beyond me, Chaburah? So I don't want to go too far with it, but he does talk about Hashem knowing the form of the thing because of the thing itself, or being identical with the thing itself. So Hashem knows me not by encountering me and seeing how I behave, where he just knows me because I exist. And that's enough for him to know me. Whereas I know things because I encounter them. I know myself because I encounter me, which is why I don't really understand why I sit down and stand up, to use David Amelech's example, because so much of what goes on in my own mind is beyond my own awareness. I don't experience my own subconscious thoughts. I don't really experience my biases unless I really work to notice them. So there's so much going on that I don't notice about myself. I don't really know why I stand and why I sit down and why I stand. But Hashem does. So Hashem knows me better than I know myself. And Hashem knows things in a way that I can't even approximate. And that's why he was talking about the Ma'atzmu Rashehem, how hidden are even the beginnings of divine thought. Because divine thought is about knowing essences. And our thought is about guessing things by seeing how they act. And those are entirely different realms. Now, the idea that we only know ourselves by seeing how we ourselves act is a pretty powerful statement. And very, very mustery, as I said to Tina earlier. But that's where we're going with this. And this idea is that Maaseh Bereishis is learning from God things as they actually are, not things as they behave. Right? That's where he's going with this whole thing. And that's why you can't really get to the why of anything without the divine revelation of Maaseh Bereishis. I would also say, because
things as they are, I mean, we discussed last time the idea of the overlapping magisteria, but obviously religion and Torah make many truth claims, factual truth claims, beyond the why. So, I mean, the way things really are can't be accepted.
Give an example. Look, go back a step. Give an example of what you mean.
I'm saying, like, I guess positing things like, I mean, that there was a person named Avraham.
Okay. Right. That's not Maaseh Bereishis, though.
No, but I mean, the things as they really are, as he's saying, are beyond science.
That's his whole point, was that the Rambam was wrong for identifying Maaseh Bereishis as science.
Right.
Maaseh Bereishis is the understanding of the whys of science, right? Which is only known by knowing the forms themselves, which is only possible if you start looking at angels and why angels gave these things these forms, and therefore is only knowable through Nevuah or through a Navi teaching you. And that is what we call Maaseh Bereishis.
So when he would say that, when Chazal make a statement about some physical reality, would he say that they're referring to the metaphysical reality beyond the reality and not actually about science?
No. You're referring to he didn't actually say anything about the rest of Torah yet. All he said was that Maaseh Bereishis is knowing the forms and the whys of, and the purposes, well, not the purposes, the essences of things. And this is something a person can't figure out on their own, because people only know about things by their encounters with them. And it requires a God who actually gave things their forms, or gave the things that gave the things their forms, either directly or indirectly gave objects their forms. I mean, he talks about angels. So he may have given the angel the form that gave the grass the power to grow. But you need God with the why is there this form and not that form. Let's go back again to where he started. He started with the rainbow. So the scientific claim about the rainbow is science. The Maaseh Bereishis claim about the rainbow is that it's an oath. It's a sign of the covenant that Hashem made with Noah. That's the dichotomy he started with. And if you realize he really started when he was talking about Maaseh Bereishis, and he started with the elements and so on. He was showing you that there's a unity to the two explanations. That the way physics works and the way humanity works has a parallel because Maaseh Bereishis causes science, not causes in a physical scientific sense. Maaseh Bereishis is the reason for science, right? And therefore, they're all going to follow the same kinds of rules. Oh, by the way, if you find all of this a little heavy and inapplicable, um, Derashah Aleph is much more. Let's put it this way: somebody asked me if I was going to skip it. Okay, and I said no. It would be great if we stuck through this for a few years and actually made a siyum. So I want to do the whole thing, but we'll see how many people stick with this for a few years. But yeah, that is my plan. But just as a knowledge, for your knowledge, Derashah Aleph is kind of known for being a little more medieval than some of the other drashos. Um, it's definitely more medieval than my general memory of the book was. Okay, but in any case, let's do the next paragraph before we sign off. Because the next one is V'lachein me'ata nashiv l'seder parsha. So let's go return to the parsha next week, and now just finish this one thought that he's bringing before he looks at the rest of Parshas Breishis. Hine. So now he's giving you the here it is, the bottom line, or the way the translator put it, in sum. Im Cain nisbaer yidias ha'adam. We should explain. Therefore, we should explain that a person's knowledge v'chakiraso and their research eina magas lahasig amitas advarim is insufficient to reach the truth of things, ba'atzmam, in and of themselves. Rak mikrehem, only their accidents, as he puts it. But I think only the events they cause. Because I'm thinking in an era of science, and therefore I'm thinking about experimental data. The Gambazeh, Yeshotatu Rambim, Litir Behadas. And even this becomes the territory of the masses and a lot of why am I getting wrong there, Steg? And accumulates knowledge. And it is not at all part of Maaseh Bereishis. And which is handed over only to the prophets and to the Chachamim who learn from the Nevi'im. I added the learn from. Aval davar nimsa legoye haratos, but it was given to the nations of the world, lemishpachos hadama, and the families of the earth. And since everything which we're going to say concerning the rest of the parsha, doesn't really touch these secrets of Maaseh Bereishis. Anu yicholim lahavin b'mikraos lahavin behen l'chikochenu. We could understand the mikra, the pesukim, and understand them according to our abilities. So he's saying that's what Maaseh Bereishis is. We're not going to be dealing with Maaseh Bereishis in the rest of the parsha. So let's go on now and study the rest of the parsha. And anybody want to ask anything on the record before I hit the stop? Okay, so that's this week. Next week, he's going to look at the week of creation and so on. And that's where we'll continue. But the basic picture that I've gotten so far is that creation starts plus a Aleph. Hashem creates something from nothing, substance without forms. He gives it 4 forms. Those 4 forms are then recombined into more valuable forms. We call that us. We call it everything usable, because nothing really exists as a pure element. Even the earth is not the element of earth unadulterated, right? That's the value of earth, right? From there, we got to this idea that there's a whole science to combining things that is true on all levels. It's true both on the physical level and it's true on the human level. Why is this so? It's so because these rules come from Maaseh Bereishis, not from science. So the idea that forms should be more useful in combination is actually the part of the wisdom of forms itself. God created the universe that way. It's not from the physics of the universe. And therefore, he goes from there to the fact that when an element rises, it's going to fall. When a person puffs up their ego, he's going to be brought down, right? These are all laws in which you see that providence, hashgacha, and physics are following the same rules. Because physics is the outward manifestation of Maaseh Bereishis. That's how he's tying this all into one concept, right? The rainbow is physics, but it's the outward manifestation of the os, of the bris, even though the bris postdates the physics. Although he also, while he affirms that idea, he also gives another one. So it may or may not predate the bris, right? He gives the Ramban's idea, and then he gives his own idea that the clouds used to be so thick that the light couldn't get through at all. So there was no rainbow after rain. There was just, subdued lighting. But whatever it is, nowadays there's a rainbow because there's a bris, not in the cause sense, in the purpose sense, not the key, the lama'an. If I've explained those terms in a previous shir. The Laman Yerbu Yimechem V'Mei Al Adama is not is so that, right? You do these things so that you will have many days on this earth. You and your children have many days on this earth. It's not a cause, but it does answer the question why. Right? Why has two answers, one in the past and one in the future. The becauses lie in the past. Oh, yes, I definitely discussed this because I remember last week I discussed how Friday night we go Aleph Beis Gimel and Shabbos day we go Tafrei Shin. Because Shabbos day we start with the world and we go to God as ultimate purpose. And therefore, the Aleph is at the end. It's in the future. How is everything working to the divine plan? Whereas Friday night, when we talk about creation, we start with God and we end up with tough, with multiplicity, with everything. That was so I definitely discussed Kian Uman also, but a refresher is not too bad either. So that's where we're going, and now we're going to be looking at the rest of the parsha.